Hi, I'm going to talk to you about a few different topics. I have a list here I made, which includes meditation, religion, purpose of life, science, philosophy, consciousness, and society. So rather than talk about these one by one, I'm just going to talk and cover whatever I cover. So, I guess I'll start with the purpose of life. There is no purpose of life. And that goes deeper than what it might sound like. What I mean by that is when one is able to realize there is nothing that needs to be done and no more striving, and one is fully equanimous, just being in the present moment, I would say that's realizing the nothing I'm talking about. So, in a more practical sense, what is the purpose of life? If we're talking in practical terms, I wouldn't say nothing. That was more of an absolute answer. And that wasn't a nihilistic response either. And so in more practical terms, the purpose of life is to actually, I can't speak on that. Rather than discuss the purpose of life, I will suggest modes of living that lead to absolute insight. So, the primary method used for insight is meditation in various traditions. There's Buddhist, Hindu, Tao, Confucius, and then there's the classical theistic religions like Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, which have more abstract forms of meditation that I guess you could call prayer. So, with the less ambiguous meditation as laid out in Buddhism, I believe Buddhism has the least ambiguous teachings out of all the religions. Which, on a side note, I think every single religion teaches the same thing, or I know this in relative terms, but the difference between the teachings is often lost in translation, which makes it rather obscure and hard to understand, so they appear to be very different. However, one or a highly attained person, not that I am, but a highly attained person can go and read these scriptures and compare them and see that they're all saying the same thing when you go back and read them. With that being said, I think that no religion is better than any other religion. However, I do think some religions are less ambiguous and the message is not lost, like Eastern religions. I think Buddhism is the least ambiguous of the Eastern religions in the sense that they provide you with step-by-step detailed instructions. You follow steps A, B, C, and D, and you experience result E. And it's very clear, very straightforward, no interpretation. It just takes time to practice. Take Christianity, for example. I think the teachings in Christianity I think Jesus would disagree with a lot of them because, I mean, this gets a bit controversial, but the Bible isn't really Jesus' teachings. The Gospel of Thomas actually is more in tune with Jesus' teachings. If any of you have read that, the Gospel of Thomas is basically, it looks like a Buddhist wrote it. Not that I'm trying to take Christianity or any other religion and make it fit into the Buddhist framework, but it's true. So getting back to the purpose of life. Oh, also, not only are there different paths to realize absolute insight through the different religions, I also think that paths such as parenthood or random things like writing or painting or a passionate hobby could also be individualized paths that could lead to these same insights if done properly. Now, I know I said passionate, and of course, if one is too passionate about something, that could be seen as an attachment or a desire, craving. So, I just want to make a distinction with that real quick. So, there are all these paths that lead to the same place. All the paths start at different locations around the periphery of the mountain, but they all bring you to the peak. So what is the peak is the real question. And why is there only one peak? Because there can be only one peak. If you start proposing dualistic versions of reality, things start to philosophically fall apart. I'm not going to get into that. Maybe another talk. But anyways, this peak is enlightenment in Buddhism it's called enlightenment. In Christianity and it's called God. In Islam it's called Allah. And it has a bunch of different names, but it's all the same thing. It's one thing, and I know that the notion of heaven is basically enlightenment. The concept of God in classical theism, he's portrayed as an anthropomorphic deity God in most cases. I'm talking about the common lay followers. I'm sure there's many advanced followers who do understand what God actually is, and they have a very well defined and accurate definition for this God. But I would give the definition of God as an unlocalized energy that flows through all of existence, not just matter. I'm sure Jesus would probably agree with me. Not that I'm comparing myself to him. He was much wiser. But, yeah, so the point of life is to realize absolute truth. I'm having a lot of thoughts right now about how deep I should go on something, and it's a bit daunting because I could see myself going down one path and talking about something for too long. I've never done this before. So I guess I'll move on to who I am. I'm basically nothing. But in conventional terms, I have some insight. That's all.